Hey, it's another edition of the Loaded Radio podcast. Back after a couple of weeks off there, but hey, great to be back with a great show tonight. We got a couple of guests. It's another one of those double-header podcasts. And a good one, though, man. I'm telling you, first off, we're going to be talking to the one and only Brandon Saller, who is the frontman for ATREYU. Now, ATREYU are releasing a whole ton of stuff recently. Now, they've just dropped a 3-part EP series made up with April's The Hope of a Spark, and then continued with August, The Moment You Find Your Flame, and A Torch in the Dark, which dropped on November 3rd via Spine Farm. All these leading up and accumulating in the now released band's new album, The Beautiful Dark of Life. So we're going to be talking to Brandon about the new album, about the whole project that's been going on with the ATREYU, because I mean, that's a lot of music, man. That's a ton of music. Also, in the second portion of the podcast, I'm going to be speaking with DOMINUM frontman Dr. Dead, better known as producer and songwriter Felix Heldt. And DOMINUM are a new band signed with Napalm Records and known for taking the living into the world of the undead, telling stories of zombies, survival, and so yeah, think of like zombie power metal. That's exactly what it is. And they're going to drop their debut album, Hey Living People, on December 29th via Napalm Records. And they're going to be good to talk to Felix about this new project, which I think is cool, man. Anything that mixes horror and metal to me it's good. I'm in. Like, I'm just so signed up for that. Now, if you happen to be listening to this podcast via YouTube, we just ask that you give us the video a thumbs up, or even subscribe to the channel if you want to get crazy, and then you get all the hard rock and metal content right to you. But if you're listening via Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, or even via loadedradio.com, then hey, just chill, you're good, because we're going to get this going right now. ATREYU have the new album out now called The Beautiful Dark of Life, which is out now via Spine Farm, and they just released 3 EPs leading up to it as well, man. A whole whack ton of music. And yeah, Brandon Saller, frontman from ATREYU, joining us here on the Loaded Radio podcast this week. Brandon, how you doing, man?
What's up, man? How are you?
With the release of the EPs, of course, leading up to the release of the album, who's been acting as producer amidst this whole project?
John Feldman was the producer of the whole project as a whole.
Okay.
As far as the releasing, I mean, really, this just came from us kind of wanting to think of some kind of alternative release kind of strategies that would better suit more of the songs in the collective album. And then thematically, it kind of just started piecing itself together, where it made sense with this kind of concept that we came up with to do things kind of in these waves or EPs that kind of each represented kind of the full cycle of emotion that the grander concept was going through. So it kind of just started laying out itself, but it started with just a desire to really want to give each of the songs kind of more of the day in the sun. You know what I mean?
Now, did each of the EPs have their own individual sort of like writing sessions and creative process, or was it all kind of like one big amalgamation?
It was all one. I mean, we went in with the intention of just going in to kind of write an album, make a new album. And then, as I said before, like kind of wanting to figure out more creative ways to, like I said, compartmentalizing itself into multiple releases and made it more sense to do it that way.
Tell me about the song I think that's a great song. I mean, what can you tell me about the creation of that one in particularly?
That song kind of came from, I just had a chorus one day, and the idea of that song thematically really is like a lot of times you grow up and you become an adult and realize that maybe like some of the characteristics that you like define yourself as, or like some of the things like that you just think you are as a human, are just not all that accurate, you know? Right. It's like, I feel like sometimes you're kind of playing like an avatar of yourself without realizing it.
No, I totally get you.
And I think that was like something that I was going through as well, and that kind of concept came together with that. And because sonically, one of the funny things about that, for about 10 years or so, maybe longer, we've been trying to write a song with the crosswalk sound from the Australian, like a blast beat. So we would like joke about it for years about like putting that in a song. And finally this song was like the right tempo. So if you listen to the song carefully, there's like a like laser beam thing, and it's actually the Australian crosswalk sound.
Is that what it sounds like? Really?
No, it's not even the one. Yeah, that's it. And it's funny because like we didn't recreate it. We actually like recorded one. It's an actual Australian crosswalk, authentic.
That's great, man. Another song that I really love, the song that's actually been in my head for the last few days too, is Immortal from The Moment You Find Your Flame. That's been on like repeat as well. What can you tell me about Immortal? I love that chorus especially.
Thank you, man. I mean, Immortal is just kind of like that. It's like a bit of like a hold my beer moment, you know? I think that, A Moment You Find Your Flame is sort of, that middle ground where you start to have some aha moments, you start to have some hope and maybe some vision.
Yeah.
And then a better place on the more positive times. And I feel like Immortals was kind of like, is kind of sits in the torch in the dark kind of place. You know what I mean? Where it's like, we found it. We know who we are. We know what we're doing here. Like, and we're confident in that. We're not going anywhere.
Now, I guess when it comes to like the creation of these songs too, with the band, I mean, do you and Dan Jacobs ever just like sit together and just bang out like jams, like old school when it comes to your writing?
I mean, I feel like it's different than it used to be. I feel like back in the day, it was a lot of, mostly me or Dan that would kind of come with like the brunt of like bigger ideas. And then everyone would kind of have their place in like putting their input into it and putting their kind of spice on things. I think now it's much more of like a group oriented thing. Like we get in the room, the five of us, sometimes there's a sixth writer or producer involved, and we kind of just throw out their ideas for the day and we pick whatever we feel is strongest and kind of all throw our things in. And I mean, all of us are writing lyrics, all of us are inputting on melody, like everyone's inputting on riffs and ideas and production elements and everything. So it's very group oriented for sure. It's definitely a lot different than it used to be back in the day. Like, when we were first starting, it would be like, we'd all go to dad's house and sit in a room and hash out riffs that we wrote and turn them into songs, and maybe a month later, 2 months later, go into the studio and record them or get demos or whatever. So it's definitely a lot different these days.
Yeah. And because I was thinking about like the writing process must have been, I mean, you got 3 EPs leading into The Beautiful Dark of Life, which is the new album, the culmination really. That is a lot of material, man. And so like, what is the process that ATREYU does when it comes to, just creating such a plethora of new stuff?
I mean, like I said, we just kind of get in every day. The good thing about our band is that like, especially in this point of our career, like everyone's kind of comes in guns blazing. Like no one's kind of taking the back seat when it comes to writing music. So it's like every day we all have an idea, at least one, you know what I mean, that we had in the middle of the night the night before, or a riff idea or a chorus or a concept, even a lyrical concept. That's a lot of times Porter will come in with like a concept that's really cool. And I feel like on this last one, like we were like 24 songs deep, and we actually got told to like, our producer told us to stop.
Really?
He's like, hey, like let's stop writing songs. Like we have 25 songs almost. Like let's start worrying about the ones that you really love and singing if we love all these songs. And we do. I mean, I don't think there's anything that will go to waste or won't get used at some point. But it was like taking that 24 and figuring out exactly which ones fit into the landscape of this particular release. And but we're luckily not at a shortage of material at this day and age, which is great.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you think that you'll even have like enough, say maybe even some material left over where there will be another project that you'll have to, showcase them with?
For sure. I mean, I think there's songs that we wrote that just didn't fit this specific thing. There's a couple songs that we really, really love still that we kind of have in our back pocket that it just kind of like need a specific sort of stage to come out on, and it wasn't this record. It wasn't this feeling that we were kind of working with this time. So there's definitely some stuff that will probably peek its head.
Gotcha. I did want to ask, how was touring with Iron Maiden? How was that experience?
It was awesome, man. It's like, there's legends,
Yeah.
And it's like, they're legends and they have every right to just be any sort of stereotype you'd ever think a, older legendary metal band would be. And they're just like, not, they're just like very nice and accommodating. And their crew was like very nice and accommodating and like sent us champagne the first day of the first night. And
that's great.
It's crazy. The weird thing about Iron Maiden is we did shows with them about 15 years ago in Mexico. And it was scary. I think obviously our band was in a different place back then.
Yeah.
I think that we're just like more solid now than we were back then, but also like we're just like younger kids. Mexico, the fans are just fucking rabid, especially when like, that back then it was like Iron Maiden, ATREYU, Carcass, Morbid Angel, and Lauren Harris, which is Steve Harris's daughter.
Yeah.
So it was like death metal royalty, Iron Maiden family,
Yeah.
and then like, who the fuck is this ATREYU band that's playing right before Iron Maiden?
Yeah.
So it was like challenging to say the least, but I was excited for these shows, like redemption for me. But I don't know if it was just because it was like Canadian crowd or our bands within a different place than we were back then. I think that's a lot of it too, but the crowds were so fucking awesome. It was such a cool experience.
Dead Icarus, new project from your old singer Alex and Varkatzis.
Yeah.
Have you checked out the material at all? Like, do you guys talk with him at all, or?
We don't talk, but I have most definitely checked out everything he's done. I mean, you can't spend a lifetime with someone and not have an interest in what they're doing. You know what I mean? And I would hope he would do the same. But yeah, I've most definitely checked it out. It's fucking really cool. I mean, it's I think it's exactly the kind of stuff that he likes to make, and I think that's really cool for him to be doing that and kind of have full freedom to go off and do something new. You know what I mean?
But for yourself, like, do you miss sitting behind that drum kit? Like, do you miss those old days of the band, those classic days?
I mean, it's one thing I don't miss.
Really, eh?
I love playing drums, but like, I mean, I still get to play drums here and there in the live set, and obviously play drums, you know, sometimes in the studio or wherever, or from writing, whatever. But I don't, you know, I think it's so much more interactive and kind of suited to my personality to be a frontman than sitting in the back of the stage. Like, I'm not a timid, quiet person, you know?
Yeah.
So I personally love the connection out front and the kind of freedom out front. And, you know, like I said, I still get to scratch that itch from time to time and play when I need to, but I'll tell you, my hands are a lot softer.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Which is lovely.
Less callousy, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, my wife loves that.
Sure. Also, I wanted to bring this up. You recently appeared on Sophie Lloyd's album Imposter Syndrome with the song Pressure. How did that come about?
I met Sophie kind of just like through friends of friends, and we had chatted a little bit, and she approached me to do that song with her. And but she's such a great guitar player, and ended up meeting her when she was playing with NGK at some of the stops in the States. And she's just like such a kind human, and like really cares about what she does. So it's kind of a no-brainer to be a part of the record. And obviously those things take time. Like, I did that song quite a while ago, and then finally it's now coming out, but it's awesome. It seems like people really like the song, and I mean, she deserves it. She's so dedicated to what she does, and she's such a great player. I think that a lot of times the internet might favor, you know, like a pretty face and just like give credit to like someone, you know what I mean? But she is so fucking talented. Like it blows my mind. I think that's why I had to be involved, because it's such legit talent.
Yeah, and she's had some really cool people on the album too. I mean,
man, really diverse.
Yeah, like were you in studio for that, or was that like sort of like on location kind of a thing, or?
It was all on location. She kind of just sent me the demo of the music, and I wrote all the vocals to it, and then just kind of tracked him with my buddy Joey Bradford in California. But yeah, it was all kind of done remote. But that was also cool to be like, here's this song, do whatever you want. Like, she had no guidance. It was just kind of cool to have trust from someone like that I didn't even know, you know.
Looking like into the genre of the band and the notation that you guys are metalcore. I mean, do you really embrace that the band is a metalcore band?
I don't think that we ever did, to be honest. Like,
really, eh?
Metalcore didn't exist when we started, and that kind of was something that got thrown on us, you know. Mm-hmm. Like, I always joke, like, even like the emo thing, like, you know, I'll do like emo nights, and we'll be involved in these kind of like nostalgic emo things, and I feel like we barely have a foot in a lot of those scenes, you know what I mean? Right. But yeah, I mean, people can call us whatever they want, you know, as long as they're listening and having a good time, you can make up whatever title you'd like for us.
So you're not there in the studio thinking, okay, is this sound metalcore enough or stuff like that? That's out the window.
I would say more so is if we're like, oh, we don't want to do that because it sounds too metalcore.
Oh, really? Eh?
Probably the opposite.
Now, how do you feel about the metal scene today, like as a whole? Like, do you think it's going somewhere? Do you think it's actually doing better, or do you think it's doing worse? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's like everything comes in waves. I think it was like the whole emo thing for a while, and that still is going. But at the same time, I think like heavy music is coming back in a big way. Metal's coming back. A lot of the bands that we kind of came up with are doing better than ever, including ourselves. So I think that's definitely like that's absolutely happening.
Who are you listening to for inspiration? Like what kind of music, what artists particular inspire you?
I mean, it's random. There's not tons of, it's all very random. I'm more of a person that just, my inspiration comes personally, like kind of like lightning in a bottle kind of thing. I feel like I'm more so just thinking of nothing, or like half asleep, or, I hear something in fucking nature, or walking by, whatever, hear some sound when I'm walking around.
Australian
crosswalks, yeah.
Crosswalk, yeah.
But rather than kind of bands for inspiration. But I mean, I feel like there's still a lot of great music going on right now. I think I love some of the bands that I love. Spirit Box. There's a band called Blame My Youth. That's a great kind of like modern kind of punk kind of party band. That's fantastic out of California. But yeah.
Spirit Box are killer. I'm a big fan of those guys as well. Great Canadian metal band. Love those guys.
They're crushing, man. They're doing things that no one else is doing. It's insane to almost keep putting out heavier and less commercial material and continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Have you ever met the guys? Have you ever played with those guys at all? Or
we've never played with them, but we've done a couple of festivals, so just know them from that and met them a handful of times. And then Josh, the bass player, we know for a long time because obviously he was in As I Lay Dying for a long time. We have tons of touring history with that band. So
you'd be open to maybe collaborating with them at one point. That'd be so badass, man.
Oh yeah. I mean, Courtney's voice is unreal. I would love to do anything with them.
Totally, dude. You know what, Brandon, thank you so much for the time today, man. Glad we could connect. Please get better, man. Please take care of that cough.
I will, man. Thank you so much.
All the best, Brandon. Take care, pal.
Appreciate it.
There he is. This Brandon Saller. He's the front man for ATREYU. And yeah, the new album is called The Beautiful Dark of Life. That's out now via Spine Farm. And check out those EPs too. They're great, man. Some great tunes on there. They're just sounding killer, really. But it is Scott Penfold, and we're about midway through the podcast this week, and I'm now being joined by Felix Heldt, better known as Dr. Dead. He's the front man for the theatrical power metal band DOMINUM, who are going to be releasing their debut album, Hey Living People, on December 29th via Napalm Records. And I want to talk to this guy. I want to find out what this band's about, because there's something else, dude. I'm telling you. Felix, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Hey, thank you. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us this week on Loaded Radio. It's I gotta admit, man, I just sort of discovered the band through Napalm, and you guys are awesome. I'm a big fan off the top, man. You guys are great.
Thank you so much.
But getting into the band itself, into DOMINUM, before we get into the new album, which is coming out at the end of December, how did the concept for the band come about?
Well, it was basically, I'm a record producer here in Germany, and I'm working with a lot of bands. And I recently it's so some time ago already, but I did an album with a band, and I was thinking, all right, there is now a pirate band. There is a musketeer band. There are several Viking bands, but there is no zombie band. Why is there no zombie band? The world needs zombies. And I mean, like, I understand some people don't like pirates, some people don't like the musketeers, some whatever, but everyone kind of likes zombies. The Walking Dead is a huge success everywhere in the world. So I was thinking the world needs zombie metal. And this is what I did.
And the fact that you've chosen to infuse the genre of power metal into it, I think is very cool as well. Why power metal in particular?
The thing is, when you are a producer, you always hear similar stories when, like, for example, singers come to the studio and ask, like, all right, can you make me sound like Freddie Mercury, or can you make me sound like Bruce Dickinson? And I always say, well, no, I can't do that. You are gifted. You are a singer. You do have a voice. So let's enhance it. Let's feature it instead of hiding it. It's great you have a voice. And so what came out of this was, like, it has to be 100% authentic. It has to be 100% me. It has to be 100%. I have to have the full connection. So I wasn't thinking too much about, is this going to be power metal? Is it going to be symphonic metal? Is it going to be whatever metal? Yeah. I just did my thing, and the label was something that we put on after, because you have to give your baby a name, let's say.
Yeah.
And so we figured that afterwards, and even though I don't have like the typical power metal voice, you could say, we still thought power metal would be a good label for the music. That this is how it came about.
The album, Hey Living People, which is going to be dropping at the end of December. Obviously, you produced the effort here. Is it a concept album?
Well, I would say you could more call it a concept band because it's Dr. Dead with his zombies conquering the world. And I wouldn't call it too much of a concept album because the next record will be for sure contain some zombie content. And I think Hey Living People does exactly what it says on the title. It's for all the living people out there in the whole world, saying, get prepared, the zombies are coming for you, but don't worry, they're good zombies, they're metal zombies, everything is fine, calm down. So,
I love that. And the tracks I've heard of it so far, just killer tracks, man, like Immortalis Dominum. What can you tell me about that song in particularly?
It was, I exactly knew how it was. We had this idea, like the director of the video, we had the idea, all right, let's do a zombie movie-ish music video where a beautiful girl gets caught through the woods. I mean, this concept is, let's say, it's not the newest concept, but we thought it might be cool to do something because we always want to do like real cool video clips. We don't want to do any just putting a band on a hill and let them play towards the ocean. This is not what we do. We want to do proper zombie stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And we were like, okay, cool. And I have this girl, she wants to do it. She's called Annie. I asked Annie, would you be interested in running around in the woods when it's 0 degrees Celsius, freezing cold? Would you be interested in that? And she was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. But we did not have a song yet because all the other songs that were there at this date it didn't fit with the concept of the video. So I kind of checked out her TikTok because she's quite huge on TikTok, and I checked it out and found some inspiration there actually, which was very cool because you can find inspiration everywhere. You watch zombie movies, you get inspired. You run around the street, see some crazy people, you get inspired, you know? So it was the same thing with Annie and her TikTok. And then I kind of was sitting at the piano and fiddle around, and then this it appeared, and then I basically wrote the song, I don't know, 2 hours or something. It was the quickest song written on the whole record, which is quite funny, I think.
Another one I like is Danger Danger. What can you tell me about that one?
Yeah, well, at some point we knew in what direction it's going to be, because the first song that appeared was Patient Zero, and then it was Cannibal Corpses, and it developed such a project that you form when you're 30 and not when you're 14. It's different because you work from song to song and you have a clear picture in mind. Yeah. And then at some point, all right, it's might gonna be a symphonic power metal-ish band, what we're doing here. What about doing a proper fast track? And then I was thinking, yeah, okay. So I digged in some groove, like in the studio, had a nice groove going on, and then this idea came to me, danger, danger, and this is like basically where the song started. Even though it's like it has a more cheesy approach, you can say. Yeah. But I always like this kind of thing, and it might be born a bit out of the. It might be born a little bit out of the Rock Hero Picture Show. Might be a tiny reference to that, because they also kind of play around with those chords and with those styles and those significant cheesy-ish statements. And I really love that, and I want to do that myself. So this is what Danger Danger came about.
And you guys came out of the gate, of course, with Patient Zero, which another great track. Is there a story behind that song in particularly, and why you led off with that song?
Yeah, well, it was actually the first song that was written where everyone was like, all right, that could be something. Because when you are a producer and you produce your own record, it's an absolute nightmare. You can't imagine, because you overthink everything and you try out everything. This project started in German even. I was singing around in German, and then I was like, no, that doesn't feel right, and just blah, blah, blah. And then you work around. And with Patient Zero, the catchphrase was there first. So I knew the song is going to be Patient Zero. And when I sent this song around to my mates, everyone was like, that could be something. That could be the direction that we want to go to. It's very cool. And then also the story behind it, the Dr. Dad experiments around with his in his lab with a lot of serums and everything. He fiddles around with that. And this is the final serum that finally works, that makes the zombies listen to Dr. Dad and don't want to kill him. So that's the story behind Patient Zero. It was basically the first song ever for DOMINUM at this stage. So we've kind of thought it might be cool to release it at first.
Of course. And I do got to bring up some of the covers. I mean, like You Spin Me by Dead or Alive's on there. You do Billie Eilish's Bad Guy, even Midnight Oil's Beds Are Burning. What inspired you to cover these tracks in particularly?
So I listen to a lot of music, of course, because you have to stay fresh. And I don't listen to only metal music because I want to know what's going on. And there's always, when you're in the studio, there's always music around.
Yeah.
But in the studio, you mainly hang around at the kitchen and drink coffee. That's like the main thing you do in a recording studio, right? Yeah. So me and the guitar player, we were sitting around at the studio having recorded some tracks and everything, and was drinking some coffee. And then Billie Eilish came around, and it was like we heard the and we were like sitting there with our coffee and like, oh, that's a nice drop. That it would be so much cool if this would be like a metal breakdownish thing. Why is this no metal? Why can't we let the metal breakdown be a metal breakdown? And we were like, wait a second. We have a guitar here. We have microphones here. Let's do it. And then we went here and did the thing. It was great fun because like a great song always stays a great song. You can see that with, I don't know how it's in the US, but Gimme Gimme, for example, is huge here. There is an EDM version. There's a Feuerschwanz metal version. There's the ABBA 70s classic version. A good song always will be a good song. And this is what's so exciting about this. You can't destroy a good song. And so we tried to do it. We tried to metalize it, but a good song never breaks. And this was what's fascinating about covering good songs.
Now, obviously, I've seen that you guys are already getting some live stuff booked already prior to the album even dropping. When the album does drop, what's the plan? Are you going to be hitting the road for a while, or what's going on there?
I mean, we have a release tour together with Die Apokalyptischen Reiter and Equilibrium.
Yeah.
Two German bands, which is awesome because we can get the record on the road straight away for the release. Next year, we have a lot of things planned. Some things are not announced yet, but we do have the big Feuerschwanz tour, which is awesome. This is like a great package together with Feuerschwanz and Orden Ogan. And we will be playing some shows with them, which is really nice. And we also have some big festivals planned, which I am not allowed to say right now because they're not announced yet. But it's going to be a cool summer, I think.
Well, I'm just imagining what it's going to be like to see the band live, being that, you are the horror power metal band. I mean, what can people expect with the live show?
I mean, you can expect a show for all senses, if you can say that in English.
Sure.
We will give you the best power metal experience you can get. We have there's always something weird happening on stage. It's gonna be like an opera musical-ish kind of thing, like almost theater thing, with a lot of crazy stuff going on stage. So there will be full action going on.
Very cool. Now, the band is already starting to even get to comparisons to the American horror metalcore band Ice Nine Kills. How do you take things
really?
Like that?
Well, of course, I'm super happy about this. It's very nice, and of course, it kind of gives me also the pressure because I'm right now working already on the second record. And when you get I've also read the treatment that Napalm sends to you guys, and if it says like, all right, a promising power metal band in that genre, blah blah blah, you're like, all right, I better start writing the second record, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Because you know how it is. I write 100 songs a year, and if I'm very lucky, 10 of them are all right. If I'm very, very lucky, one of them is good. So yeah. I already started writing for the second record.
For you as an individual, Felix, being a producer so extensively as well, and concentrating, I'd say, strictly with metal and heavy music, who influences you specifically? Oh,
I'm totally influenced by everyone here. I mean, I think mainly you can't escape your socialization. I mean, the phase between, I don't know how it is with you, but the phase between your 12, let's say, and 16, the records you listened in that period of your life will always haunt you. So I'm mainly influenced by, let's say, Slipknot, Seven Dust, also the Rock Hero Picture Show. I've listened to that stuff so much, man, and I just can't get rid of it. Journey, Queen, all that stuff, So, but what I always do is I listen to music all the time, basically, and whenever something triggers some kind of emotion, I always save it immediately. I have like a Spotify playlist that's basically full of individual emotions that I can recall and that inspire me. And this is what I try to do. I always try to stay fresh and try to collect new triggers that trigger me in some ways.
And you were mentioning before, we were talking about the live aspect and bringing that sort of production out there to the stages. And this is a question I asked of Spencer of Ice Nine Kills as well. But could you see eventually going down the line and even looking at some of your videos that you've released thus far that you could maybe at some point even collaborate in some sort of a feature film or something like that of a project of that size? Could you see that happening at some point?
Absolutely. Sure. Why not? I really enjoy, honestly, every kind of collaboration. I think everyone gains always something out of each collaboration. So if someone would be up for that, for sure. I mean, right now we are kind of in the position that we are mainly a support act around because the zombie invasion is starting.
Yeah, right. Yes.
it's starting, and we try to get to as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time because, for obvious reasons. But this zombie shit spreads very fast, as you can see, like in every zombie movie. But of course, if people dare to collaborate with zombies and Dr. Dead, we're totally open for that.
Beautiful. Felix, Dr. Dead, thank you so much for your time today, man. Really appreciate you taking the time, and I can't wait to see you guys live.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
So there you go, man. DOMINUM going to be releasing their debut album, Hey Living People, on December 29th via Napalm Records. And great speaking there with songwriter, producer, main guy, really, Felix Heldt, better known as Dr. Dead. I think he prefers Dr. Dead. Don't forget, check out loadedradio.com for all your hard rock and metal news, updated constantly, as well as a 24-hour stream of nothing but hard rock, metal, and live personalities, including yours truly. Also, we have the Loaded Radio podcast. You can get past episodes at loadedradio.com or via the Loaded Radio app, which is completely free, by the way, so I definitely recommend you download that from either iOS or your Android platforms, okay? So you'll be good to go, and just open us up and you're good. Man, you're streaming, you get all the podcasts, you get all the good stuff, okay? So I'm going to wrap it up there. It is Scott Penfold saying thanks for tuning in once again to this edition of the Loaded Radio podcast, and we'll talk to you again soon. Loaded Radio.